Joining us in studio is Mncane Mthunzi, Black Management Forum President. Good evening and thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Mthunzi. I suppose, it's one of those, what is it, the 53rd, if I'm not mistaken, conference that the BMF...
No, not 50. BMF has been in existence for 41 years.
41 years, okay.
Yes.
So, but looking at the programs that you've had previously, essentially dealing with not only the complexion of the economy, ensuring that there's equitable and just conditions for workers, how different is this one going to be?
So okay, let me start with the theme. The theme of our conference is the South Africa we deserve. So and this is the same theme that we had, actually the theme for the whole year that we have always been having. So I think we feel like we're at a crossroad as a country. We need to take stock and reflect in terms of where we are. Do we need to think about the leadership we have? What is our views around the economy that we have? And what is our views in terms of the social impact that we have as a society and government? And what is it that we need to do as business, as government, in terms of making sure that the social safety net is basically taken care of? I think we're at a crossroad. We need to reflect and review. And I think the BMF context, as far as the conference is concerned, we would like people to be able to give us an input as an organization for us to be able to have a way forward around expressing our views about what we need to do.
Yeah, but if somebody were to say they've attended so many other BMF conferences and the plenary session, the caliber of speakers that are there, what was the material impact of the resolutions that you've made previously in dealing with pretty much the perennial issues we have in this country?
So BMF workshops or conferences are not talk shops in our view. And so I can demonstrate maybe 3 examples. So the Black Economic Empowerment Act that we have today is as a result of the BMF conference. In that conference, we took a resolution that there must be a Black Economic Empowerment Commission that basically set the rules in terms of how it should work, who should benefit, and structure the whole thing. And that evolved and emanated into the act that we have today. And I can go to the Employment Equity Act. It's as a result of the BMF blueprint. As far as affirmative action is concerned, it evolved to the Employment Equity Act we have today. And most recently, we have a JSE, which has agreed with the BMF to have race and gender to be part of the listing requirements for companies to be able to trade in JSE. So what does that tell you is that we make a resolution that makes an impact in terms of what needs to happen, and it changes the society.
Monitoring, evaluation, planning, and ensuring that the wonderful policies that are in place are implemented and upheld as an imperative for business. We know that there is resistance in most cases where companies would rather factor in their ledger the penalty for non-compliance. So how do you ensure that in the nobility of what needs to be done to correct the injustices of the past, that it is implemented?
So the power basically resides with government, and I think we must be clear about that. So the government needs to take the rule of law seriously, and they make sure that companies that are not complying with the rule of law, they bite and they take action around it. So there are companies that don't even submit employment equity plans, and there are no consequences. We hear year after year when Employment Equity Commission releases the reports, we hear that people are threatened for litigation, but litigation has never happened. So where power resides, we need to engage and ask government to be able to do something about it, and of which we are, as far as that is concerned. So our job, we are a lobby and advocacy organization. Our job is to highlight where attention is needed and make sure that those who have power and influence can do something as far as taking action is concerned.
Okay, so in the conference in itself, and these again buzzwords, people would say we've had similar policies, so be it the National Development Plan, or be it GEAR or ASGISA. Radical economic transformation is something that is on everybody's lips. It is this conduit that's going to create an inclusive economy. Yeah. If it hasn't been adopted as government policy as yet, some would say it's not even a plan in itself, it's more vision than anything else.
Yeah, let me clarify something. We don't have a theme or sub-theme that says radical economic transformation. The PMF position is that transformation by its nature, by itself, it's radical. So what we've been fed in this country since the dawn of democracy, it's a reformation, okay, disguised as transformation. And the good example that we normally give within the PMF is that if you look at the chameleon, that basically changes colors based on the environment that it finds itself, that's its reformation. But in our view, transformation is when you have a caterpillar evolving into a butterfly. Those are two different states. So our government has been feeding us reformation, they call it transformation. And then now that we realize that we have not transformed enough, then we have these buzzwords and catchphrases such as radical economic transformation. So, but we are not against it because that's what the PMF has always been about. The PMF has said that transformation has to be genuine, has to be impactful, and it must make a difference. And you see the impatience as far as a lack of transformation is concerned, that is what is calling for the so-called radical economic transformation.
Okay, let's look at current programs, that of industrialization and creating more opportunities and getting rid of barriers to entry for entrepreneurs in the current reforms or policies that we have, that the middle class, black middle class at that, is not replicating itself enough. And with that, we see the socio-economic impacts being felt more in the black community.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're not doing enough. But we're not doing enough because those who have a know-how are not consulted within the process sometimes. So if you ask me, our biggest challenge is not access to capital in as much as it is access to markets. So what we need to do for change to happen is to make sure that black suppliers and black producers and manufacturers, they do have market. And government must establish that itself from government itself, and then also must put policy framework to ensure that private sector does that. Without knowing where and who is going to buy your product, whether you're a farmer from planting point of view, without a clear understanding where this fresh produce is going to go to, or as a manufacturer where your product is going to end up. So you don't have a business, in my view. So you need to secure that first, and before you can think about the raw material, the investment that you need to make sure that you can produce the product.
All right, before we get into the nitty-gritties of the program, again, policies such as the preferential procurement policy and set-asides, which was meant to not be biased, but to encourage more black participation, that in itself had been a hindrance. Because if you take the 80-20, 90-10 split on your capacity, whether you have capital up front, had been discriminatory in excluding black business. So how's this conference trying to deal with the mechanisms that currently exist to be more friendlier to doing business?
Yeah, so one of the sub-themes within the conference is to look around the issue of inclusive growth, which the PMF basically has advocated for a longest of times. I'm glad that it's getting attention now, and how do we go about doing that? So these things are very practical. You need to have transformation. By the way, it's painful. Transformation by its very nature, it has to make people uncomfortable, and so you need to have courage to make sure that you could see it through. What really needs to happen is courage that the government needs to have, and the policies must be able to be effective. Our policies, in my view, are advocating for the country that we wish we had, not the country that we have. And so there must be that realignment in terms of the reality of where we are and what needs to happen. And we must push hard in terms of that to be able to happen. But you need courage for you to be able to achieve that.
Okay, just very briefly, executive summary on how we achieve the South Africa we deserve.
Yeah. So the South Africa we deserve would basically look at the biggest issues and challenges that we have. And then firstly is that the household income, black household income, actual white household income is 5 times that of black household income. And we know that the income basically come from the workplace. There lies the challenge. It means that companies are not paying black people as much as they should be paying them, or at least they are paying white people more than they pay black people. So that's a place that we need to put spotlight on and make sure that we be able to achieve that. And the other things that we need to do is the issue of a land. I think government needs to spark courage and be able to say what is it that we need to be doing as far as land issues are concerned. I mean, ANC had a policy conference in June. There was a deliberation around the issue of land. I have not seen the policies that are concrete, but I think we should not worry until the December conference where those policies need to come out and they have to be adopted. But ANC needs to take a bold step around the issues of land ownership. And there, I think the other problem, that challenge that I think it has, is around the issue of ownership around the economy. There's a big debate around whether black people own 3% of JSE or they own 10% and indirectly they own another 13%, therefore it's 23%. So we need to be clear about which methodology that we should use, we should adopt. And it's better when government at the center can drive these things and there's no debate, because PMF can come up with its own methodology in terms of how do you measure ownership of JSE. JSE has its very own. Any other agri forum can bring their own. And then we have a whole lot of discord and debate around which one to believe. But government, if it formulates the methodology that we all believe in and we all accept, it becomes better. Like exactly the same as Employment Equity Commission. It looks at terms of what is happening. Whatever the report they produce, people are not debating around it. It's factual. You can have your own opinion about it, but it's a fact. You can't change the fact.
Okay. All right. Just very briefly also, who's participating on the conference? But before you go there, though, how do we deal with the unlocking of the monopoly of the capital in South Africa? I won't attach a particular
white
race
monopoly.
to it.
That's be right. So I think it's a big thing. But, you know, companies by themselves, by its very nature, when you compete, you want to dominate. And you want to make it harder for people to be able to enter the market and compete with you. So by very nature, it becomes hard in terms of how you do from a commerce point of view. For me, what needs to happen, government must come up with legislation to say that there must be a certain quota for a black participation. And every company must be able to do that. For example, if you say that for you to trade in South Africa, maybe 50%, 40%, 60%, whatever the number, must locally procured. By its very nature, it will force companies to stop importing and start working with the local suppliers and grow them so that they can produce whatever services and products that they need for them to be able to serve their customers.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I'm afraid we're out of time, but for more details, I'm sure we can find those on your website. Is it open to the public or is it completely sold out?
The conference is open to the public. If you're still interested, you can dial us on 784-4407-011. That is the code. Or you can go to a BMF website, which is bmfonline.co.za. And it's a very exciting. By the way, we have the owner of the station who will be participating in one of the debate.
And the former president of BMF.
And the former president of the BMF, together with Dr. Makosi Koza. They will be closing the conference of the BMF, and it will be robust, it will be lit. And then we have other people like the advisor to the Minister of Finance, Chris Malikani, will be participating. Dr. Tabi Luoka will be participating. And we have the Competition Commissioner who will be participating in the BMF conference. It's a big one, and we would like the public to, those who can attend, to attend. Please make sure that you just don't rock up and you register so that you are confirmed, because we can't deal with a multitude of masses, but also follow us on Twitter in terms of the tweets that will be going through if you check the BMF handle.
All right, we'll certainly retweet that as well. Lovely having you in studio and seeing you after such a long time. Yeah. That's Mncane Mthunzi, Black Management Forum President, talking about their upcoming conference. It is this Thursday, and for more details, you can go to the bmfonline.coza. That's bmfonline.co.za.